things is they woke up, but they were crying. And they were looking around. You could hear the and it was very windy. And they were outside in the playground, and you could see the swings going, kee, kee, kee. And it was like, oh my goodness. The thing is, the person never remembered it. They just woke up like that. Did not realize that they were out there. Again, one of the things with sleep cycle, it's such a mystery. That's the uniqueness with sleepwalking. It's still such a mystery. They'll do sleep analysis and everything else, but one of the things is, it still is very much a mystery. That's the reason why, how many have ever looked at dreams and you looked online, like, why did I dream about my ex and everything else? Is that a sign? Are we going to get back together? Is there hope for me? We don't know. Everybody's like, oh, I had that dream earlier. How did he know? Okay. There's two over here that are like, did you? Okay, I know I called you guys out. I'm sorry. So one of the things is, dreams are very unique because, again, they're very subjective. So now, bedwetting. So, or enuresis, is a common problem. But again, you also want to have that level of potty training. And there was a question that was posed a while back, and the question was the outlook of, what if my child's bedwetting and going into another stage? And that's where we, one, want to make sure that something traumatic has not happened, because that is a possibility if there is some level of trauma. In addition to bedwetting, we also look at the aspect of trauma or abuse from a sexual manner. Because one, if that's the case, initially it's one of those things where it keys into their aspect of trauma. So that's one of the things we're always looking at too. It tends to run in the family. Even the little tiny bear had an accident. Anybody notice the bear? So now, swaddling. Again, we do this in the culture. One of the big things I'm always try to advocate a lot of parents is to make sure you position the baby continuously. Do not just let them lay on their backs, because what happens is the back of the head does not become rounded. If you do not, it just becomes very flat. So when you wear a hat or a cowboy hat, what happens is the cowboy hat starts to go forward. Again, it's more of just a physical aspect of, how would you call it, more of a cosmetic aspect of saying, this is what we're looking at. But it's one of those things where you want to continuously position the baby. You don't want to just leave them on there and say, okay, that's it. Because one, you want to continuously reposition the baby. So now, health. So within that you have SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. So this is, I don't believe this is in your book. Is it in your book? SIDS. No. Okay. So this is one of the things that's not in your book, so this is where you will have it. It is there. So this is crib death. This is where an individual will sleep where? On their back or on their stomach? Stomach. In addition to that, also tobacco smoke. I've had some parents who are like, you know what? I smoke outside and everything else. It's okay for my baby. Guess what? It sticks to your clothing. And all of that ash, everything else starts to go in, it impacts the baby. That's one of the big things I'm always looking at is saying, okay, can you quit for a while, a good while, so it doesn't impact your child? And some people are like, no, I have to have my cigarettes. I said, but I want you to be around a little bit longer for your child. And they're like, I guess so. Okay. So this is another aspect. I think this is in your book. If not, it is here. It says accidental suffocation, so ASSB, and strangulation in bed. That's one of the big things is if you look at the baby, everything has to be very tight. On the bed itself, you want to make sure that everything is tight so that as they're sleeping, that's the reason why they have that whole onesie, the jumpsuit. Because one, that is initially what they're going to be using for a while, because one, it does not have any other additional moving parts. But if you have access, some parents are like, oh, I have all these different stuffed animals and pillows and everything else. I said, can you remove it? But I want to make sure they have a pillow for their head. No, don't. Just make sure it's very bare. Because one, you want to make sure that the baby does not have a strangulation or an accidental suffocation. So temperament. So this is where we're looking at temperament. So temperament is a person's characteristic, biological way of approaching and reacting to people and situations. So one of the things is, if you look at it, there are 3 different categories. You have easy, difficult to swallow, or difficult to follow, and also slow to warm up. So one of the big things is when I meet, okay, my mind is, my words are starting to, hold on. There. All righty. So, as they're going along, their temperament will change. So the temperament is how they react to given situations. So for me, I try to make sure that I mirror them, but in addition to that, one of the big things I'm always doing is mirroring even in my body language. And I found this very useful when I work with kids, is to make sure that I get down to where? Their level. So as I get down to a level, I'm trying to make sure that I have that interaction, eye contact, versus up here looking at them and be like, very scary. Because they're like, oh my goodness, that person is tall. Yeah, it's very scary. So now, look at that. This is the study for, I think this is in your book. Is this in your book? Really? I'm looking, I know I'm looking at you because you have the book out. But it's one of those things where it is here, it is available. So the goodness of fit, the match between the child's temperament and the environmental demands. So one of the things as you're looking at that, you want to make sure that there are the initial goodness to fit. So overly active child is expected to sit still for long periods of time. How many want their children to say, sit still? See, look, hurry up and just sit there and don't say anything. And the child's like, And you're trying to tell them, like, just sit there. You know, I did when I was young. And you look back when you were young, you weren't like that at all. And then there's a slow to warm up child, which is pushed into new situations. So this is one of the things I'm always very cautious of. How many have ever done that to your children where you're like, it's just a dark room, just go in. You don't have to be scared. And your child's like, no! And you end up traumatizing them. Don't traumatize your kids, please. Because one, there's a possibility of, and there is a reason why they are afraid. When I talk to my son, that's when I ask him, I say, why? Why are you afraid to go in that room? It's dark. You want me to turn on the light? Okay. I said, see, nothing to be afraid of. He's like, oh, okay. Want me to turn off the light? No. Okay. But for us, we're like, what's the electricity bill? And we're like, what? So we use different excuses, right? We're like, no. But one of the things I also did is I gave him a flashlight. I said, all right, here's a flashlight. If you're scared, turn it on. And it's one of those really, really ridiculously bright ones where it's like the sun in your hand. It's like, what do you think he did one night?
Kept it on the whole time.
He kept it on the whole night. But he also came to where I was sleeping and he's like, Dad. And I'm like, oh, good night. And you just see this bright light. I'm like, you're glowing. Good night. Yeah, it was one of those scary moments where I thought it was a ghost. I really thought my son was a ghost because of how bright that light was. And I just hear, Dad. I'm like, this is the other world, isn't it? Oh, good night. This is happening. And then you have what? A persistent child is constantly taken away from absorbing projects. One of the big things is absorbing projects. These are different things they're doing. As I'm working with kids, one of the things we do is we do coloring, we do different aspects, we do different tasks. For my son, I give him a lot of Legos. I buy him different Legos. And for him, it's helping construct his mind. So as he's working on it, it allows him to explore different things, different options. But if he's absorbed in it, I don't want to take him away from that. Why? What do you think would happen if you took that away? Do you think he's going to explore that next time? Probably not, right? Because he's looking at it as, okay, this is something that is not meaningful to mom or dad, or they don't take in consideration what I feel is important. And so then you're taking it away and everything else. That's one of the big things you're always looking at. So now, I think I have one for that one too. So this is the Rothbard Infant Behavior Questionnaire. So this is a questionnaire that's utilized. Let's see if I can go there. Come on. Doesn't go to a website. So you can go all the way to the bottom. So this is there. So this is a questionnaire that you're looking at. You're looking at their approach, the fear, the duration of orienting, smiling and laughter, vocal reactivity, sadness, perceptual sensitivity, high intensity pleasure, low intensity pleasure, cuddliness, soothability, and following your reactivity, and rate of discovery from distress. So as you're looking at that, you're looking at all the different aspects. So this is done between ages when? 3 and 12 months. So in that time frame. So you're looking at temperament. So this is available in your PowerPoint. So if you click on it, it should automatically go there. If not, let me know. So the biological basis for temperament. So the shyest children accounted for about 50% of the sample. They tended to have blue eyes, thin faces, allergies, constipation, unusual fears. The most children had to be energetic and spontaneous. So within that, how many have ever seen that with your own children? You see that shyness. Or you see the boldness. You're like, yeah, I love life. Yeah. And you're like, wow, you're only 3 months old. It's like, I don't care. I'm going to make friends with high schoolers and everybody else. And you're like, be careful. Yes. Any of the others who are like, no. And again, that's one of the things you're always looking at. So if you look at it from a cross-cultural outlook, you have Canada and you have individuals from China. And within that, if they were inhibited, their mothers tend to be more punitive and overprotective. That's where they ended up punishing them more, and they become more overprotective. So these are individuals who are inhibited for children. So if you look at your life growing up, and you look at everything you were doing, so within that, do you feel like the things that you were shown growing up impacted how you grew up even to now? Yeah. So if your parents were more open and everything else, do you think it impacted you? Yeah. Why? How can you see that? So for me, I'll give you an example. I'll give you mine. My mother's a nurse, worked in the health field for a very long time. Father's a pastor, so he's been working in the community for a very long time. So for me, talking in front of a bunch of people is nothing. Look at my stress levels, it's calm. Doesn't matter where I'm at. Initially, if I have this up and going, that's all I need. Because one, my temperament is based upon what? My environment. Growing up, I used to go with my dad to help people in the community. I've seen individuals from all walks of life. And so within that, I've seen the ups and the downs, the lows, everything else. And so within that, working with individuals in all different community settings, guess what? Doesn't bother me. All different distresses, doesn't bother me. Working in domestic violence, doesn't bother me. Sexual assaults, doesn't bother me. Why? Because of my temperament. Because one, from the biological outlook, it was already inputted in me. But does that mean that simply just because of my biological makeup, that's what it does? No. We also have what? We have nature and then we have nurture, right? So the nurturing, we have this. So say for example, this is the nurturing part. So the punitive and overprotective, as I went forward, so the overprotective parents, these are parents who are like, no, I don't want you to be out there, I don't want you to have these kind of friends, everything else. What happens? Become more withdrawn, they're like, ah. But then when you get to college, what happens?
They explore.
What's that? It allows you to explore, right? You're able to say, they're not here anymore, I can do what I want. Yay. Nobody's going to report to them, nobody's going to tell them. Our professors could care less. People are like, but I said, I may know you, but I'm not going to report back to your family. Could care less. Why? Because it's the growing portion. I'm not going to be like, oh, did you know this? Care less. Why? Because one, you're growing, you're exploring things. In college, that's what you're doing. In all walks of life, that's what you're doing. So now the pattern of growth. You go faster during the first 3 months, or 3 years, and then start taking off. And then you have the size increase. And then you have nutrition. So this is where in the womb they're born. Initially, that's where you're looking at gestation. So within that you have cephalocaudally, and then you have proxima distally. Proxima distally, the head and the brain are the largest thing within the baby, or within the womb, within the baby. Sorry. So this is how it looks. That's the reason why we talked about the old man. Pretty scary. So influence on growth. This is where you're looking at medical care, immunization. That's one of the things we're always looking at. We're always trying to make sure that mothers are always aware of prenatal care all the way through, as well as also looking at the other aspects of the male outlook. Because, say for example, for fathers, how many fathers actually started gaining weight during the time when their baby was being birthed? Yeah, it happens. It happens. A lot of times you're like, what? That's weird. Why would that happen? Well, because one, you're both sharing a human being, and within that, guess what? The emotion is there, the stress is there, all these different things, and it's one of those stressors where you're looking at thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to comfort eat. Why? Because I'm not getting the same temperament from my spouse. So I'm going to comfort eat. I'm going to do all these different things. Why? Because I'm not getting the same attention. Attention parents all in family. And that's where the men kind of go into that whole pouty mode and they're like, oh, it's okay. So now you have the wet nurses. So we talked about the wet nurses already. And so now you have the benefits of breastfeeding. So you have uterine health, you have weight gain, you have cognitive development, long-term health for the mother, you have benefits for the child, disease prevention. As I said, disease. It is disease. Obesity, long-term health. But one of the things you're always looking at is weight gain for the child. You're trying to make sure that they gain some weight and everything else. In addition to that, nourishment. So within that, parents can avoid obesity and cardiac problems in themselves and their children by adopting a more active lifestyle. So one of the things is a lot of times a lot of individuals will say, you know what, I have a baby, I'm just going to let myself go. I said, please don't. Because you want to make sure that you are around for the baby. A lot of times people are like, it's a struggle. I know, but that's where you have the support. That's one of the big things you're always looking at, health support. And when I go to bashes or even through City Market, for the guys over in Shiprock, I know, City Market is like their kryptonite. Don't worry, I'm from Shiprock. Don't blame me. Everybody's like, oh my gosh. Let's see, where else is there? There's Crown Point. I've been to Crown Point like once or twice. But one of the big things is you have individuals, when they're buying things through the grocery store, and it's not so much a judgment call, but it's one of those things, when you look at the things that they are buying, a lot of times, is it very healthy? Not necessarily, right? You're looking at thinking, oh my goodness, they're buying hot Cheetos, they're buying this, they're buying that, and everything else, and they're buying it for a baby who's just been born, and they'll give them the hot Cheetos, and they're like, he just loves it. She just loves it. And I'm thinking, that's going to ruin their teeth. And they're like, no, it won't. Prove to me it will. Let's go to the dentist then. So with hot Cheetos, how many believe that it's a danger? How many love hot Cheetos? How many have the red fingertips? How many ever thought about getting the tattoo of red fingertips? Don't, please don't. I saw that the other day and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? This person literally got their fingertips and it was like, wow. They're like, I love hot Cheetos. All right. So if you love hot Cheetos, I'm not trying to bash hot Cheetos. But with hot Cheetos, what happens when you eat it? What happens to your teeth? Can you feel it like always in your teeth and it's all just there and it's stuck everywhere? How many brushed their teeth immediately after that? Nobody, right? So what happens with that? It packs in. When it packs in, it's really hard to get out. And it starts to harden too. So if you don't rinse it out and everything else, and you're giving it to a baby who's just now developing teeth and everything else, it gets stuck in there. And you don't brush your teeth that often, it starts to what? Rot and decay. At a very young age, I've seen babies do that. I've seen them eat hot Cheetos, and I've actually said, you cannot give your baby hot Cheetos, and they're like, I don't care. I said, really? I will call social services right now. Wait, what? And I said, yes, that's child abuse. And they're like, that's not right. I said, I know, I'm doing my part for humanity. But in addition to that, I've even seen parents give their child energy drinks. What's in energy drinks? Caffeine and what else? It's a stimulant, right? How many have drank? There you go. How many have drank 3 or 4 of the Monster cans in succession, immediately one after another? How many on that side? Nobody? Everybody's like, no, I don't want to admit to that. What happens to your heart? It beats really fast, right? It's like, and all of a sudden you have this weird flushing of your whole skin, and you're like, what is that feeling? Oh, my heart feels so somehow. Oh, heart. It's not even Valentine's yet. And you have all these feelings, and you're like, what is going on? Guess what? That's a lot of caffeine. And a lot of sugar. So it hits your kidneys, everything else, and then your kidneys is trying to recuperate and everything else and break down everything. By the time your heart's like shot way up. So when I see parents giving it, I'm like, what are you doing? That baby's little tiny heart. And they're like, oh, they love Red Bull. I'm like, what? No, you're going to kill your poor baby. And they're like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, oh, I survived. Oh, gosh. So it's one of those things where it impacts them. And if you're breastfeeding, guess what? All of those same stimulants that are in your body is being broken down into the baby too. Yeah. And one of the things we found with obesity, for parents or for children or even parents who are obese, one of the things we found is in developing countries or even in on the reservation, how many eat, well, you know what, I won't even ask that question, but I'll just pose it as an initial outlook. So for me, I like to eat all my sweets before I actually eat my dinner. And some people are like, yeah, YOLO, only live once. Yes, that's how I live. Some people are like, that's just, I saw the judgment on that side. They're like, what? He's just eating all his sweets. His kids would love him. I know. But for my son, I tell him, you need to eat all your food first. But why? I'm the adult. And he's like, that's not fair. I said, I know life's not fair. But within that, I will eat all my sweets early. And there's a reason for that. When I used to work with domestic violence, I didn't really have a good lunch every time. So I worked with it for about 5 years. And then prior, I used to work with developmentally disabled children and adults. So you didn't have a lot of time to eat. So you had to try to enjoy everything in that small amount of time of 8 hours or even 16-hour days. So you had to try to hurry up and eat really quickly. So for me, it was like, okay, eat the sweets first. Gives me energy, boosts me up, and everything else. I'll go for another 8 hours. That was me. But believe it or not, on the reservation, the reason why it becomes a concern is individuals who live in poverty will eat their sweets early because, one, they don't get it frequently. So they'll eat that first. How many have seen that actually on the reservation? They'll eat that first. We see that a lot. Are they living in poverty? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see that very much. So they'll spend more of their money where? On all the junk food. That's the reason why they gave it a junk food tax. They knew they were going to get more money. Notice how it wasn't to benefit anybody. It was to benefit the people who were selling the goods. So that's one of the uniquenesses is when you look at it, you're like, wow, that's, Because if you go to Bash's or Walmart or any place else, and you go to the produce section, how much is salad? It's expensive, right? Yeah. You go for strawberries. I love strawberries because I love smoothies in the morning. And I'm looking at like, oh, good night. Like, wow. I grab it and I run out, just hurry and pay for it as quickly as possible, but I don't see the amount. It still comes out of my account, but I'm like, oh. But one of the big things we see is that reality, obesity being very high amongst individuals who are living in poverty. That's one of the big things is, as you're going along, you're going to see all the different walks of life. How many have ever seen the different walks of life, and how many are actually prepared for that? It's scary, right? How many grew up in a home where it was pretty stable? Roughly almost everybody, right? And that's one of the big things is you're used to that. But the reality is if you come from different walks of life, you're going to see different areas. And that's the part that's going to literally make you question different outlooks. Even now, you going to school can be considered almost like a luxury. Because you're saying, okay, this is what I want to gain, and I want to give back, and I want to help somebody. So when you go back to help somebody, you're looking at it and say, okay, this is what I'm looking at, and this is the type of home I'm going to be entering, or this is the type of the family that I'm going to be coming across. And they're going to be coming from different areas. There are going to be people that are being very combative in terms of how you approach them. Because one of the things is you think, in your mind, you're thinking, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to help them and they're going to appreciate it. That's not how it always works. And that's the reality. But as you're going along, you become to be more appreciative of the outlook. And you say, okay, they're coming from this type of environment. But I still have enough empathy and enough compassion. I still want to help them. And that's where you have this, some obstacles. So initially within that, you have employment. Harder for fathers to feed individuals who are breastfeeding. Infectious disease transmitted by mothers. Even on the reservation, we have a huge rate of STIs.